Hi, my name is Izzy and welcome to my first ever rugby podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about England after a very interesting Six Nations, and I am joined by my dad, Douglas Miller. So, are England as bad as everyone thinks at the moment?
I think on the basis of what we saw in the Six Nations, they weren't great. They played well in patches. I think they played well in patches even against Wales. There were some good bits of play. They played pretty well against France, although I think we went way over the top because we'd been not particularly good, particularly against Scotland, and all those penalties we gave away against Wales, which certainly lost us the match in the last 15, 20 minutes. Italy, we were okay. I think Ireland was really poor. The Scotland game was still close. It was only 5 points difference. Wales ran away at the end. I think their last try really came because we were trying to push the match as we had to. We'd lost it at that point because of those 3 kickable penalties. But Ireland, we never looked like we were vaguely in the match.
Ireland just looked like they wanted it more.
I think that's right. Yeah. Was that your impression?
Yeah. Well, I think also with CJ Stander's retirement, they wanted kind of a big occasion for him because there was no fans.
Yeah.
And also Andy Farrell hasn't had a great time under Ireland recently, and I think he had more of a point to prove than England. Probably.
I think there's lots of truths in there. I mean, we don't know about CJ Stander, but I suspect he was very highly regarded and respected. And is. I wouldn't be surprised to see him reappear in some sort of coaching role in the future. But you can understand why he wanted to go back to South Africa to be with his family and so on. And so there was an emotional aspect to that. Also Ireland hadn't played that well, I don't think, in the Six Nations. They'd had individual players who played well, but I don't think they played very well as a team. And I think that was their game against England was almost like England's game against France, the defining performance.
I think with Ireland, they've not necessarily played badly. Their defence has been really good, especially against France. Like keeping France quiet. But I think they just needed something a bit more in attack, and it started to come through during the England game.
Yeah, and certainly Mike Catt, the attack coach for Ireland, was under some pressure as well because they hadn't played very much. And England were on the receiving end of that. So we're almost analysing the Six Nations as a whole for the teams. But just on England, I do think there's been a massive overreaction. We're hearing, this England turn up, one outstanding performance per season. So people are saying, in the World Cup it was the New Zealand match, and England were outstanding and could and should have won by more. But they forget that we were superb against Argentina, who less than 12 months later beat New Zealand in New Zealand with pretty much the same side. We were superb against Australia. We were superb against New Zealand. Unfortunately, we didn't turn up in the final, but that's a very hard run. Argentina, Australia, New Zealand, 3 consecutive matches. And France would have been in there if that game hadn't been cancelled because of the typhoon. And then South Africa in the final. So I'm not making excuses. We didn't turn up in the final, but we played 3 outstanding games.
We probably just knackered by the end.
I think we probably were. I think there's an element of that. I mean, people will say if you can't get up, motivate yourself for a fight, you shouldn't be there. And South Africa looked very hard at how we'd been playing, and actually, in a way, the way we play the game is the way South Africa play the game, and they do it a little bit better than us. That's very, very hard, defensive, aggressive style of play suits them very well too, and they're very, very good. So that was 3 outstanding games we played in the World Cup, and then in 2020 we didn't look great all year, but we did actually win the Six Nations, and we did win the Autumn Nations Cup. Although I think the way we are now, that France match when we were pretty much playing a France third team, we were awful. We were absolutely awful.
But we just somehow, the difference is we somehow managed to win.
Yeah.
Whereas that wasn't really the case. Like against Scotland and Wales, we just did the opposite. Just conceded loads of penalties because of the pressure, and
I think that was a big shock, wasn't it? How we suddenly lacked this streetwise play that we'd have, finding a way to win games, and then suddenly we couldn't win those games. The Ireland match, in the beginning of the second half, we gave away 8 penalties in 31 minutes at the beginning of the second half. 8 penalties in 31 minutes. That's an unbelievable number of penalties. And we'll come on to the players, I'm sure, the individual, what changes can we see happening? But that's a ridiculous number of penalties. And of course, which game was it where we also... Wales, those 3 penalties in the last sort of 10 or 15 minutes that they kicked, and Biggar kicked a lot.
And even Scotland, you could just tell from the first 20 minutes we conceded.
How many was it?
I can't remember how many it was.
Wasn't it? It was they were coming at 1 a minute almost. 3 in the first 4 minutes, was that
something like that?
Yeah. And I mean, that's just absolutely, why is that? Maybe we're not playing referees very well, and certainly, that last match with the scrum, the match against Ireland, with our scrummage not going well, being penalised. Was it 2 free kicks and 2 penalties against Vunipola? We didn't seem to be very wise about playing the referee. If you're giving away penalties, then just stop competing at the scrum. It's just a waste of time. And they were in attacking positions, weren't they? So it's certainly 2 of them were, I think.
Okay, so now shall we go on to changes we'd make? So players that you don't think should be in the England team at the moment.
Well, I don't know.
It's quite a hard.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? Which players would you be looking at to change, if any?
Well, I think there's like the obvious ones. I think Billy Vunipola and Mako Vunipola are coming towards the end of their international career.
Yeah.
And obviously not playing as well doesn't help.
Yeah, well, and it's amazing. They're still, Mako, I think, is 30, is he? 31?
Yeah.
And Billy's still 29, isn't he? And
I just don't think, I don't think they bring enough to the team. Billy mostly has his carrying, but at the moment that's not going as well as it usually does. So then it's kind of, well, what else does he have?
Yeah, well, he's always had a very, very high tackle rate, hasn't he?
Yeah.
That's been one of his big strengths, very high tackle rate. And certainly he does his share of tackling skill. But also, I think with Billy Vunipola, they were producing the statistics against Wales even, how he did have a better game against Wales than he'd had in the first 2 matches. But, they were saying, we made however many yards it was. But a lot of those yards were because he was taking the kick off.
Yeah.
He had 10 metres to run before he met the opposition players. And okay, they all count. But actually wasn't having really to beat anybody. I mean, he wasn't bad in the Six Nations. He just didn't have that presence.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
and there are other players contesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think about, you've watched a lot of Premiership rugby. Alex Goldbrandt and Sam Simmons are the 2 that everyone talks about. What do you think about them?
Well, I mean, there's no harm in giving them a try. I mean, at least. Well, especially with the summer tour coming up, touring North America, it'd be the best chance to try out new players. Yeah,
and so both of those should definitely go to North America in the summer, and Billy Vunipola not.
Yeah.
But do you think, I mean, on the assumption that Billy Vunipola might not be picked for the Lions, I have a feeling he will be.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would pick him, but I have a feeling he will be.
I think he'll be picked in the squad, but I'm not sure whether he will. Yeah. I don't think he'll play the first test. Maybe towards the end he might. But
and players will get injured. I mean, a lot of those players have been playing since, when did the season? July we started playing, or August, wasn't it?
Yeah, August, I think it was.
The end of last season, and then we pretty much were straight into this season. So some of those players, would really benefit from a summer off. But the Saracens players aren't those players. They're not going to now be playing serious competitive rugby for a while.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll be playing the Saracens this weekend, this coming week. I would think.
Yeah.
But Saracens will also, they'll be wary of the fact they're not there to protect players for England. They're there to get. Their job is to get out of the championship.
Yeah.
And if they don't, they're in serious trouble. So, you can see Farrell and Vunipola and both of Vunipolas and Jamie George playing because they've already shifted. They don't have their full side out. They might not get out of that division. They've lost already once. So 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 as far as so we've said about Billy at number 8, and certainly. I mean, what do you think of Dombrant and Simmons as players? Do you think they've got the potential to be international? I mean, Simmons has played a couple of games for England, hasn't he? So,
yeah, but he played during the 2018 Six Nations when.
Yeah.
I think we all know how that went
for him. Yeah.
And especially now he's a bit older, a bit more experience.
Yeah.
And he's played in big games for Exeter, like the finals.
He has
and played well.
Yeah.
And great attacking player as well. And I think now a lot more teams are focusing a lot more on attack.
Yeah.
I think we've had like a period where strong defence and your forward pack has been the main focus, and I still think it will be, but I think attack is slowly coming into becoming more important.
And I think, I mean, isn't it amazing that the Autumn Nations were dreadful? I mean, there's a series of dreadful matches because it was a cup that nobody really felt anything for. But isn't it the turnaround to suddenly a more attacking game? I just actually watched one of the New Zealand matches, not just the highlights, which was gosh, I can't even remember which one it is now, but one of the New Zealand games over the weekend, and it was. The Chiefs, I think it was the Chiefs against Wellington. I can't remember what name Wellington go on. It was Wellington against Waikato Chiefs.
Yeah.
It was an unbelievable match. The attacking. It was a fantastic game. And when we're certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, we never quite play in that way, but almost like basketball. But we certainly are doing more attacking. And I sort of. I think there's a good reason for that. That these players are getting sent off very regularly, and the more collisions you have, the more contests for the ball you have, the more you're in danger of giving away penalties, and committing foul play. A lot of these sending offs they're not intentional, of course. 95% of them are, but that does mean that. Perhaps now we're going to move to a game where the object of the exercise is to take the ball away from contact, not to take into contact because of all the risks we have. And that means that players like Dombrant and Simmons might find that it's their kind of match, their kind of game now.
Yeah.
I just have two reservations. One is I think Exeter play their game around him.
Yeah.
And will England do that? And on Dombrant, I've watched Harlequins 4 times recently, and he does the very visible things very well. The things that
but it's like the little things.
Yeah,
the key things that you need.
Absolutely.
The basic.
I think that's right. If you pick Dombrant for England, you've got to have perhaps Underhill doing a lot of tackling.
It's kind of like with our second row. So when we played against France, Charlie Ewels did the basic things very well. So that made Itoje stand out to do what he does best, which is being a nuisance and stuff for the other team.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I mean, so the Dombrant, Sam Simmons. I mean, the good thing is we've got some good players playing well in that position, which we might not have in one or two other positions. We'll come on to that. But Charlie Ewels is another one. I mean, how did you see him? How did you see his? You just said, haven't you, that you thought he played well against.
He does the basics very well.
Yeah. And I think Eddie Jones likes him. He
He's
played in Argentina, didn't he, a couple of years ago? Yeah.
He's a bit like a Launchbury in a way.
Yeah.
Like quite quiet, just gets on with. He does what he needs to do, and yeah.
You think we miss Launchbury?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've missed quite a few players this Six Nations. So Launchbury, Underhill, Tuolangi.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And we've had quite a few players. Joe Marler.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, I mean that's
a shame.
Would Marler have played?
I don't.
Joe and Carl Sinclair there.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, no, he plays on the loose heads with like Mako and Genge.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I don't think Genge has had a great tournament.
No, and I don't know if he's been cited or not for.
He hasn't been cited.
He hasn't. No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, you hit on. We've got some real strength in the second row, haven't we? We've got Launchbury, we've got Laws who can play very well there. Although there's a good question about what's his best position. Launchbury, Cruz will come back, I think, from Japan at some point.
Yeah, I think he signed for longer than just this year.
Oh, did he? Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll need to check that, but I don't know when he'll be coming back.
Yeah. So what about? So here's an interesting one. So we've got good second row forwards, and albeit I think Itoji's had a challenging 2 months. He's clearly a world class player.
Yeah.
You asked any opposition, tell me 3 England players who would be delighted if they weren't in the team. The opposition, that they would say Itoji would be one of them.
Yeah.
No question about that. He's certainly the most talented forward in Europe. I think he's the best forward in Europe on his day, winning on his day, and he'll clearly come back and be good. Yeah, he clearly will be. There's a good question about whether who'd be the captain. Perhaps we can come on to that when we've talked about the changes. So we're saying. So we've talked about Billy, haven't we, at number 8? You mentioned that we missed Underhill.
It's gone to backs. So.
Yeah. Oh, what about the props though and the hooker? Do you want to just cover the props and the hooker?
Well, I think hooker Cowan-Dickie.
Would you play him ahead of George now? Do you think? Does he offer more?
At the moment, I don't see why not. But I do think though George doesn't have the same impact off the bench as Cowan-Dickie would. Yeah,
that's a very, very good point. Yeah, George a better man to have on for 50 minutes and then 30? Yeah, when the opposition's tiring. Although all sides change their front row now, don't they? It's just standard, isn't it? It's very bad. Sinclair might have played the whole match on Saturday, but it's quite rare now that you get the whole front row staying on. So George, I'm in 2 minds. I rate George very highly. I think he's struggled because of the lack of play. For 2 months he wasn't playing.
I think quite a few
fired up Scotland side. That's tough. And so George, I have a concern about props. I think we've got a lot of good props outside of Sinclair. Vunipola isn't playing as well, and has for a while now, I think, and it's a concern. Carl Sinclair's clearly a very, very good prop. I think he has his moments, but he's shown more maturity. I thought he played well on Saturday, actually.
Yeah.
And showed some considerable maturity in a difficult situation, which he hasn't done before. But I'm worried that we've got a lot of props who are good, but they're all about the same standard. The props being good example, Hepburn and Harry Williams. Yeah,
but no great outstanding kind of.
If there's someone really pushing to come through. And we felt that, didn't we, in the World Cup final, because we had to bring on someone who I think was 3 or 4 years past his best.
Dan Cole,
way past his best at international. Certainly at least 2 years past his best.
Yeah.
You need players who are absolutely at their best. So So I would be I'm concerned that we've just got some vulnerabilities there. I've always been a big fan of Kieran Brooks actually at Wasps. He's a very, very good front row forward.
Yeah,
now we come on to the backs, don't we?
Yeah. So should we start at scrum half?
Yes, I think both of us will have a lot to say about scrum half.
Yeah.
But I think, what do you think? I mean, we may have different
Well,
views on this. I don't know.
well, Young's I kind of have mixed opinions about. So when we're attacking and we got fast ball, I think he's really good.
Mm.
The only problem is he can't kick.
Yeah.
Like when we're playing that kicking game, which sometimes you need to do because it's, like against Ireland, I think it was a good strategy to try to start with because Ireland have strong forwards, but that wasn't working for us.
No.
So I don't know why he does kick because most of them just aren't effective.
Yeah.
They go too far or not far enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think because he is getting older, I do think we need to try out some new younger ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I agree totally with you on Young's. It's an endless source of frustration. You know, we had ball at the beginning of the second half when we were 14 down against Ireland. We really needed to test them. And I think, the Irish back three are superb under the high ball.
Yeah.
Same as Wales. What is the point even of continually doing this aerial bombardment? I just couldn't understand it. And he kicked 3 times at the beginning of the second half. One of them was okay. It was still 2 meters too far. The guy had the chance, could have catch and adjust. The other 2 kicks were just kicking ball away. And I've never really in the last 2 or 3 years seen any evidence that he's improved at all. He just doesn't. He's just not a good kicker. And there's very little evidence to say in the last 2 or 3 years that he's able to do it well. He just isn't. He's excellent in broken field. He's excellent with a bit of space. He's quick. He's got good spatial awareness of particularly around his support when he makes breaks. Often his breaks do get finished off because he's got a very good awareness of who's around. But that wonderful series against Australia in 2016 when he played so well, that's a long time ago now. And he's had some good games. He's had no great games in my view. Certainly the last 2 years, no really great games. And I tell you the other thing I think about him. He's not your pain in the backside scrum half who's getting the forwards going. You never see him get in there, get that ball out. You never see him doing that.
Also, just his passing isn't great. Like you always see players just like reaching up to try and grab the ball, trying to get it down low.
Well, you're being diplomatic, Izzy. I think it's not great. I think the biggest issue with his passing is I tell you what, to his credit, he's got a bit. I mean, 2 years ago he was really slow to the breakdown. But that's improved. So he's managed to sort of speed it up. He was struggling to make the breakdown, and particularly with the kind of game England try to play, particularly in the first 20 minutes. We're at our best when we really play a fast game in the first 20 minutes. He was slow to the breakdown, but his pass, he takes that step, and that he's not a natural scrum half passer. And he's never going to get better now because that's what, when you're 18 or 19 or 20,
that's what you're
whipping 500 passes out, like that, and just whipping them out. And I don't get the impression he's ever done that. I really don't. So I really do feel now, I think he's benefited because Danny Kerr has always been too immature for the toughest test matches. He's fine against Italy, but Danny Kerr has been his natural competitor from that position, certainly over the last 5 or 6 years when he decided Wrigglesworth wasn't going to be the man. I think that was a mistake, but I would have had Wrigglesworth for quite a long time as England's scrum half. But when they decided it wasn't going to be him, Kerr was his natural competitor. But Kerr is just, I think, is too emotionally immature for the tightest international matches. So inevitably, Youngs was going to win 100 caps. I don't think he's a 100 cap quality scrum half. I really don't. 40, 50, maybe, but he's not a 100 cap quality scrum to me. So who replaces? Who comes in?
Well, that's quite a. Well, I mean, I would have given Harry Randall a go, but unfortunately he got injured, so we don't know how that would have.
Yeah.
But hopefully in the summer again he'll try out.
Yeah.
Because I think maybe Youngs might make the Lions squad.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
I have my doubts about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
but I think there might be a chance he might make the squad.
Purely on experience. If not,
and Eddie Jones has said that he might rest some of the players and try it. So,
today he's announced that, I think, hasn't he?
Yeah.
What he's going to do. And I know he says things about fly half, which we'll come on to.
Yeah.
But I think with scrum half, so Harry Randall.
I think Dan Robson, give him a start at least.
Yeah, I mean he's
because we've only seen him come off the bench.
Yeah, he's come on with 20 minutes to go, and we've been we're being well beaten. And the last match he ended up at fly half and actually produced a fabulous pass for the try. It was a superb pass.
Maybe try him out as fly half.
Yeah, well, that's one position we got lots of, isn't it? We'll get on to them in a minute. And there's the Alex Mitchell as well at Northampton, who seems to have kind of.
He's been picked for the squad twice, two Six Nations now, but he just hasn't been given.
No, we don't know anything about it, do we?
Yeah.
No, I mean he's that game for England against the Barbarians a couple of years ago. Was he playing for England? Yeah. He played in that game, didn't he?
Marcus Smith, he got man of the match, didn't he? He played really well in that game.
Yeah. So who knows about Harry Randall? But he looks like your awkward, typical scrum half,
quite small.
And we haven't had one of those since Dawson. One of those really annoying players like Faf.
Yeah.
There's a few of them. There's a few of them around, and Wales always had one or two of them. When we I dare say, talking about the Lions squad, I personally think that there are 4 scrum halves who are better than Youngs. I think there's certainly Conor Murray, Ali Price, and Gareth Davis and Thomas Williams, both the Welsh halves. I think are 4 of them ahead of Youngs. I think for the Lions. So I think Youngs will get a rest this summer, but he may not come back. That's So that I know for you and me has been a big frustration. That I think he's been overrated. I really.
Yeah.
He's never bad for England, but
no.
He wasn't.
The World Cup final.
He didn't.
Kicking the ball, throwing the ball straight into touch.
But nobody had a good game with that.
Yeah, no. So it's quite hard to.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many things that went wrong in the first 5 minutes. So we come on to fly half, and that's really interesting, isn't it? And I noticed Jones has sort of thrown about 5 names.
Yeah.
Interesting that he didn't mention Umaga, did he? In that list.
No, he's been very out of form recently.
Yeah.
There's plenty of players ahead of him at the moment. But also with Fords, he's one of those players. He's very consistent. He never has a really bad game, and he reads the game very well. I think, is a very good fly half for England.
Yeah, you rate him, don't you?
Yeah.
What about some of the others who are?
Well, I think we should give some of the others a go, like Marcus Smith, definitely.
Yeah.
Or Simmons as well.
Yeah. It's interesting. I read a lot of different articles on Sunday and Monday after Saturday's matches about the Lions squad. And I know we talk about the Lions, but it kind of indicates people's views about him as well, about George Ford. And some people, I read about 7 or 8 people selecting this. So it was interesting. They either had him as the test fly half, or not in the squad at all. There was no sort of in between with George Ford. But I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think he's a really good player. And I think go on.
England's attack always looks a lot better, more sharp, and just really good in general. When he's at fly half.
Yeah, I think he's been. Everybody talks about Joe Simmons. Everyone talks about Marcus Smith. Yeah, they're clearly the next two in line.
Yeah.
You know, if you put them, so the Scotland match, the first match, you know, George Ford got criticised, Farrell got criticised, everyone got criticised in the backs. But, you know, our pack was being beaten.
Yeah.
Against Ireland, we were, you know, would Joe Simmons or Marcus Smith, you know, Joe Simmons and Marcus Smith are looking great at the moment because they're playing in the two best teams in the Premiership.
Yeah.
But the two form sides, along with Bristol, they're the three best, you know, along with Bristol, they're the three best sides. Yeah, they're playing in packs that are dominant, and of course they're good.
It's quite hard to judge backs when your forward pack isn't working. Like when looking at player ratings from the Ireland game, like rating like Anthony Watson and Johnny May, well, they didn't get the ball hardly ever, so it's quite hard to rate them.
Yeah. I can't remember. I think after about 60 minutes, I'd completely forgotten Watson was playing.
Yeah, and Johnny May, he touched the ball a couple of times, and that was about it. I think.
Yeah, it's remarkable. It's I just think Ford is much maligned. I think he takes the punishment for what the forwards haven't been producing.
Yeah.
And when the forwards produce the ball, he uses it. I think he's a really good player. And he'd be one of my first players on the team sheet, I have to say. And I also think he's an extremely good goal kicker now. He's really worked very, very hard to be a very good goal kicker. And I think he'd be really unlucky. If he doesn't get picked for the Lions, there's every chance he'll have the summer off. But
I think he should be in the squad, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. You're going to pick fly halves, three fly halves in the squad. He must be one of the three. Yeah. So Ford we like.
Yeah.
Simmons I like. Smith I like, you know, but they're playing in very good teams at a club level, and it's easier to look good in teams like that. What do you think? I mean, there's an argument about Ford, and I think it also applies to Marcus Smith. They're small.
Yeah.
And
I think Ford's like the smallest. He's smaller than Youngs, and he's
he is.
Man, the England team.
He's very short and small.
Yeah.
And you know, are they targets for bigger opposition centres or for back row forwards?
The thing, I was watching like some analysis videos, and they said whenever Ford goes to defend, a forward always goes with him.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And that's one thing that France exploited, and so did Ireland.
Oh,
you know,
the French try.
The second French try.
Yes. Yeah.
That one where they threw it over the top.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, targeting forwards, and then a forward had to kind of go with him.
Yeah.
But then they executed it well and managed to get a try.
It did. It was a fabulous try. It was a training try, but it was a great try.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that particular try, but I think you're right. That's clearly what they were targeting. Have a French forward coming onto the ball with Ford there. You're taking a back row forward out of the game as well, an English back row forward, and that gives you more opportunity either inside or outside, doesn't it? Yeah, interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, it gives you a bit more opportunity. Yeah.
And that's maybe one reason why he might not start against the Lions. Why some other fly halves might be ahead of him to start.
Diende in the centre.
Yeah.
Just sort of coming straight up forward.
Yeah.
Sucking in our back row. The Lions back row, because as you said, you know, he has protectors, sucking in the Lions back row and then giving you many more options outside.
Yeah.
Africa. Yeah, I can see that. But we're both forwards.
Yeah.
He's still there. Yeah. So we come to the back five, the centres, the wings, and the fullback. So perhaps there's fullback one that we should talk about first. Do you think?
Yeah.
Because
I think wings like Anthony Watson and Johnny May, I think they're kind of they're still really great players, and I think they should keep their starting spots definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Murray's had a quiet Six Nations, but he's a great.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of credit at the moment, and Watson just built credit. He was under threat, wasn't he, Watson? He was playing really poorly for Bath.
Yeah, but suddenly for England, he just
yeah. I mean, it's clearly, and virtually every Lions 15 I've seen, he's on the wing.
So. So fullback, Max Malins.
I think so. For the time being. I mean, are we going to have some young players come through? Are we? Let's not forget that Elliot Daly was a converted centre wing. Are we going to see that another centre stroke wing comes through? There's no position in the centre available, and we move that person to fullback like we did with Daly, and they become a great fullback. That's hard to. I still see fullback as a very specialist position, and this converting people into fullbacks.
There's even an argument to have Watson at fullback and someone else on the wing.
Yeah.
Because doesn't Watson play fullback for Bath?
Yeah, he does sometimes, doesn't he? And I think he's a very, very fine positional player. He's very good under the high ball. He beats the first tackle. Daly does that, but Daly isn't as convincing under the high ball. He's got to have the ball first to be able to beat the first man. And Daly, I thought Daly was our best player in the last match.
Yeah, especially in the second half.
I know he had one or two wobbles in the first half, but in the second half, I thought he was our best player. And played very well the last 20 when he came on as well against the French. So he's still there, Daly. He's a fine player.
And I would have. It's such a shame that he didn't play at centre. I would have loved to seen him.
Yeah, that would have.
Because then he wouldn't have the catching under the high ball.
No,
he would just do what he does best.
Yeah, it would have been great. Having said that, with the way our forwards played, he
made
ball. I mean, Ollie Lawrence got 2 bits of ball. I hardly saw him with the ball. I feel quite sorry for him. So we come on to fullback. We're agreeing on Malins for the time being. We've got the wings. We agree on May and Watson. So we have the centres now.
Yes.
And who's captaining the side?
Yeah. I mean, I still think Farrell. I know he's been a bit out of form, but I think he can come back into form.
Yeah.
I still think he should be in the side.
Yeah.
Because he's still been. I mean, defensively, he was really good against Ireland. He got a penalty for turnover and some good tackles.
Yeah.
And against France, he was good.
Sorry,
in attack and defence.
Yeah. So we've got Farrell in. I mean, he's a world-class player. You go down to England and they rate him incredibly highly down there. They really do.
If you have him at 12, I mean, I think Slade as well. He's a great player.
Yeah.
Well, it's really hard because I think if you have Farrell at 12, you need a bigger crash ball kind of centre like Tuolangi.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think, which is pretty much our. I mean, we're picking the England side of the World Cup, aren't we? Youngs.
Or someone like Tuolangi.
Yeah. So that's either the two people who are there. So we've got these 4 centres: Slade, Tuolangi, Lawrence, and Paolo Adowu.
Yeah.
Who I thought was very unlucky and not to even get 20 minutes.
I really hope he does at some point.
He's got to go in the summer, hasn't he? He's got to go with England in the summer and play. It's ridiculous if he doesn't. He's had 8-9 weeks probably he was the form player in the Premiership at the beginning of Six Nations. He was outstanding in those last 2 or 3 games for Wasps and the hammering of Bath. he had a lot of space. He won't get that kind of space in the international game. But you rarely see centres making 4 or 5 half the field breaks at international level.
Yeah,
like do in a club game when the opposition aren't playing well. He's not going to do that international, but you would only want him to do 1 or 2, which Tuilagi does.
Yeah,
really outstanding.
But it makes a difference because any ground you make, it still gains momentum.
And once every 3 matches, he'll do that sort of outstanding break. That completely breaks up the play. I mean, there are debates about their defensive qualities. How good is Adowu defensively? He's a wing converted to centre. Lawrence, I haven't seen enough of. I'm not convinced by him.
No.
I've seen him playing for his club a couple of times. He hasn't looked. I haven't thought, wow, that's an England centre.
But again, he plays for Worcester, which at the moment isn't.
No, not a great.
Yeah.
Oh, they're okay. But
so it's quite hard to.
Yeah. You could see him maybe moving clubs at some point.
Yeah.
But so what are we saying? We're saying Farrell in, and we're saying. Tuilagi fit.
Yeah, or Adowu. I don't know how to say it.
Adowu, yeah. I'm not sure either. I've assumed it's Adowu, but yeah. I mean,
but I think that's harsh on Slade because he's an amazing player.
He is. I think he'd probably be a very good fly half for England as well. So he's a very, very good footballer.
Or you could even have him maybe at 12 instead of Farrell.
Yeah.
Or he's kind of more 13. So
I think so, because if you've got Marcus Smith or George Ford at fly half, I don't think you can have. Slade's a very good defensive centre as well, but you'll need that really hard physical presence. So you might bring Tuilagi inside and Slade outside him. I like the sound of that. That's a lovely midfield 3, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a lovely. But they've got to have the ball. They've got to have the ball. That's the. And we've been really, really struggling to give them the ball. Yeah. I mean, Farrell, they're great players not playing well. And it's really difficult. In 12 months' time, we could be having this conversation, and Farrell's playing outstandingly.
But I don't think he had a terrible tournament. He obviously against Scotland, he didn't play well at all. But I don't think he should have started
it. 2 months, which was
I don't think he should have. That's quite a lot of pressure. Bringing him to 10, which isn't his usual England position, after he hasn't played for 2 months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he looked like someone who hadn't played for 2 months, and so did quite a few of the other players as well.
Yeah. Italy, he was okay. Yeah. And against Wales, I thought he actually had a decent game.
Yeah, I agree. I think.
And against France, and
well. And it's difficult to criticise many of the backs on Saturday because they had very little ball to work with, and our forwards were completely outplayed in a way that I haven't seen for a long time. So, yeah. But it's. Jones has said today, hasn't he? The cycle of 2 years.
Yeah.
He's noticed.
And also, he said something like about 60 or 70% of the players that were in 2019 World Cup will be in 2023.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Maybe that's another podcast for you to think about. Okay, let's pick your
team. Who will be my 2023 squad?
Who's your team for the opening match of the 2023 World Cup? I don't even know what our first game is, but
Argentina.
Oh, right. So we'll be playing our full strength side for that. So what would the team be? I think we'll be surprised. I think there will be 2 or 3 players who, we've got to bear in mind, that some of our, Sam Underhill gets injured quite regularly. We got a year and a half out of him, but then he gets injured, and so in the back row that presents opportunities for other players. So it might Launchbury will be 32 or something, and Laws will be 33, I think 34 even. He'll probably be just gone by then. So second row, is that Charlie Ewels? I think Johnny Hill went backwards.
Yeah, I don't. That's the thing with some of these players that people keep mentioning is they're great at club level, but how good will they be?
Yeah.
In the England side.
Yeah. He was a walking penalty at times,
yeah,
as well, like Itoje was. Not as bad as Itoje, but certainly he was trying. It's trying too hard, isn't it? You're trying to turn the game around, that chance turnover, and so I can understand why. And he's trying to keep his place as well when we've got a whole stack of really great secondary forwards who happen to all be injured or unavailable, but you know, he knows they're going to come back, and it's difficult. It's difficult for him, but he didn't shine. No. So
okay. So come on to captain, shall we?
Yeah.
So kind of I say there's three options. Well, obviously Farrell, who is captain, and Itoje and Curry.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I
I'm going to ask you a question. Who did you, when Farrell went off, who was actually the England captain?
I think it was Curry.
Was it?
I think it was.
I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Someone said that I saw on Twitter people saying that the commentator said it was Curry, and he also did the post-match interview and the press conference.
Yeah.
So I think it was Curry.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting then, because the decision to take that scrum was absolutely ridiculous.
That's why I'm saying, well, you could make two arguments: is that they need more experience as captain. The only way they can do that is to make them captain.
Yeah.
Or just for now keep Farrell as captain. So, and
do you think though that, you know, if you have Farrell captain now, so we'll have autumn internationals, I suppose, won't we? Assuming COVID doesn't ruin all of that. If he's captain, then he's really got to be captain through the next World Cup, hasn't he? You don't want to be replacing your captain a year before.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, that's what happened with England last year. Farrell officially became captain end of 2018, 2019.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. When Dylan Hartley... did it go from Hartley to Farrell? I think it did. Yeah.
They became vice captains. That's joint captains in 2018.
Yeah.
And then slowly, Dylan Hartley just
I think it's a difficult one. My gut feeling, I sort of feel playing in the centre is not the best position to captain a team. There have been exceptions to that. There have been great captains who were centres, but gosh, I'm showing my age. You know, I remember we had an England captain in the 1980s who played on the wing. So not great England side, but so there has been precedent there. But generally, I like to see a forward because they just sort of they're there. You see how things are going. You can influence at forward. The game's won and lost up front. It always will be, no matter what team you are, no matter what kind of backs you've got. The game's won and lost up front. You've got to get at least parity or close to it in the game up front. And so I sort of think your captain needs to be in a position to influence that, and that's either from scrum half, or in the forwards. So it's Curry or Itoje for me. I think I'd go for Itoje.
Yeah.
Because I think he'd have to discipline himself.
Yeah.
I think it would... He feels a little bit like someone who's trying to find an extra role for himself. So that's why he's giving away all these penalties. He's trying to be more influential.
Yeah.
I sort of think there's a lot of reasons why that is, but one of them, I don't quite know what I mean, but he's trying to influence the game more. There's a frustration in him. Perhaps I don't know how great he is. I think he's a great player. Had a this is the first time he's not had a good 3 or 4 May. Good. Wales, he was reasonable, but he's not had a great Six Nations. Can you remember? Last year, the year before that, England played 5 games. 3 of them, he'd be man of the match.
Yeah,
at that level now. He'll go back to that. He's too good. He's young.
Yeah.
5 or something is he at the moment? Something like
that. I think if Itoje was to become captain, then I think Curry will be the next captain, because Curry's still only 22 at the moment. So he'll be, if he doesn't get England injured, he'll be in the side for another 10 years or something.
Yeah, and what's interesting about Curry is he hasn't got injured yet.
Yeah.
The kind of game he plays, the players who play the game the way he's always the first man there. He's taking the hits and so on, and he's not got injured yet, so I hope he may have one like Alan Wynne-Jones. He may have the kind of body that can get up to 100 internationals, consecutively, and not be out injured. We certainly hope that's
Yeah,
he's a great, I think. So I changed.
Well, captain's up for debate. It's always going to be.
I changed the captain. So are you going for Curry, are you? Are you going for Itoje or Farrell?
I really don't know.
So I guess we're picking the team. I mean, England has a full strength side and now not going to be playing until the first of the autumn international. So I guess we're picking the team for the first of those.
Yeah.
And I think I changed my captain there.
Yeah.
So let's finalise our team. So.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
So our back line, are we going to go the back line is Harry Randall?
Yeah, so Harry Randall.
Yeah.
So is this for autumn?
For autumn. First match of the autumn, when we're back to full strength, yeah.
I don't know whether I'd start Harry Randall.
Okay.
I think I might bring him off the bench. I'd like to give Robson a start.
Okay.
Because we've only seen him come off the bench, and I'd like to see what he's like.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what would you?
Yeah, no, I can see some logic in that. I really. Yeah. I'm not quite sure Robson's an international rugby player.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he is. I think he's a very good player, and I follow him. So I'd like to.
Yeah.
I think he's just as bit short. He's an international player in a lean time when there aren't many scrum halves around. And,
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so it's Robson, it's Smith, it's Ford.
Yeah.
Farrell and Tuilagi.
And then Slade, May, Watson.
And Malins.
Yeah.
And
then forwards, if Joe Marler, if he decides because he for family reasons he wasn't in the Six Nations, but I would have him.
Yeah.
Cowan Dickey, Sinclair.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Itoje, Launchbury.
I'd agree with that.
And then probably Curry and Underhill.
I'd agree with that.
And Simmons.
We go for Sam Simmons.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'd agree with
you. Okay.
I'd give Sam Simmons a run.
Yeah.
I really would. Yeah, I think he's a run. He's not big.
Yeah.
But, Jones was experimenting with Curry at number 8, remember?
I know.
So, this argument that, Jones would want a big, he's experimenting with Curry there. So why wouldn't you Sam Simmons there?
Yeah.
He deserves a run of games, I think. He's
yeah. Okay.
That's our team.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for joining me on the podcast, and thank you everyone for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Izzy.